Today, we are diving headfirst into a really fascinating theory you might have seen floating around online. It's this idea that, over 150 years ago, a single law secretly turned the entire United States into a private company. So let's get right to it. The core question is this. Did the United States as a republic actually cease to exist a long, long time ago? People who believe this theory claim it was secretly replaced by a corporate entity, something called the United States, Inc. You see, according to them, this one law quietly turned the whole country into a business. They say the original Constitution was basically put on a shelf. This new corporate thing was created, and all of us American citizens were unknowingly turned into assets on a balance sheet. So what is this supposed smoking gun? What's the piece of evidence that they say changed an entire nation? Well, it all boils down to one specific law passed by the 41st Congress. Here it is. The entire theory hangs on this one piece of legislation, the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871. Now, its official title is An Act to Provide a Government for the District of Columbia. And right away, you kind of notice the scope seems pretty specific, right? It's about how D.C. is governed, not the whole country. But here is the exact phrase that theorists point to as absolute proof. It says the District of Columbia is constituted as a body corporate for municipal purposes. When people see that word corporate, their minds immediately jump to a for-profit business, like Apple or Ford. But, and this is a huge but, in a legal context, that word means something completely different. So, to figure out what this phrase actually means, we have to do a little detective work. We need to look at the history. What was the problem this law was trying to solve way back in 1871? Well, it turns out that in 1871, the nation's capital was a total mess. We're talking a literal swamp with open sewers, dirt roads, and a whole confusing patchwork of different city governments that couldn't agree on anything. This made trying to do any big infrastructure projects pretty much impossible. So, to put it simply, Congress passed this act to fix a local problem. They needed to clean the place up. The whole goal was to create one single city government that could finally pave Pennsylvania Avenue and build a real sewer system. This wasn't some kind of constitutional coup. It was just urban planning. And this right here gets to the absolute heart of the misunderstanding. The act created a municipal corporation. That's just the standard, kind of boring legal term for a city government. Its job is to provide public services, like roads and schools. A business corporation, on the other hand, exists to make money for its shareholders. The act just made a city government for D.C., the same way New York or Chicago have city governments. All this law really did was give the local D.C. government the legal power to do things a city needs to do, like own property, sign contracts, and manage its money. In other words, it let them buy concrete for the roads and sign paychecks for city workers. That's it. And here's the real kicker. Far from being some kind of shady move that violated the Constitution, this act was a direct use of a power that's written right in the Constitution. The Enclave Clause gives Congress the specific and sole authority to govern the District of Columbia. So the Act of 1871 wasn't an attack on the Constitution at all. It was actually powered by the Constitution. But, okay, here's the biggest flaw in the whole conspiracy theory. It's a simple historical fact that for some reason almost always gets left out of the story. You see, the government that this act created, it was a complete and total failure. It was famously corrupt, it spent money like there was no tomorrow, and it drove the city into bankruptcy. So what did Congress do? They completely got rid of it just 3 years later. So the theory just conveniently ignores that its main piece of evidence was a total flop that got thrown in the trash. I mean, you have to ask the question, right? If this act truly created a corporate USA, then wouldn't the repeal in 1874 have, ended it? The whole logic just completely falls apart right there. Even the other evidence you see, like using all capital letters for the country's name, just doesn't hold up. Theorists will tell you this all-caps version signifies a secret contract with the corporation, but the real reason is a lot less exciting. Honestly, it's just about typography. Back in the typewriter days, typing in all caps was how you made something stand out, like using bold text today. In fact, it's still a rule in the official government style manual for titles and headers. Not a single court has ever said it means anything legally different. So if the evidence against it is so clear, why do people keep believing this?
What is it about this theory that makes it so sticky and so appealing for so many people?
Well, it seems to be a mix of a few things. First, it takes advantage of confusing legal words. Then, you have these really awful scams where people sell kits promising this theory is a magic bullet to get out of debt. But I think on a deeper level, for people who feel like the system is rigged against them, it offers a simple story with a clear bad guy to blame. So at the end of the day, the Act of 1871 wasn't about selling a nation. It was about managing a city. It was a local law for Washington, D.C., meant to pave its roads and build its sewers. It just didn't have the power to change the fundamental nature of the United States Republic. And all of this leaves us with a really important question. How many other big ideas or theories are built on just misreading a single word? The Act of 1871 is a pretty powerful reminder that, especially today, being able to understand the actual meaning of words in historical documents isn't just for academics. It's one of the best tools we have to see the world a little more clearly.